The first two prakim are sort of setting up the PURIM story. So they're putting the pieces in place for the different people and the different things to be in place. That comes the third parak, and that's when Haman comes on the scene. The real Haman comes on the scene. Although he comes on earlier as Memuchan, we'll see in a minute. But the real Haman comes on then. That's when the PURIM story happens, that's when the Gzeira happens, and that's when the problems start to happen. So the first two prakim are setting things up, sort of setting the stage. Like we said, Hashem is makdim refuah lamaka. When Hashem punishes Klal Yisrael, He first puts the refuah into place. He first puts the cure into place before He brings the plague. So let's go inside maybe a lot today, because we spent the first two shiurim sort of explaining who different people were and getting into some of the details, but I still would like to go through it inside, and Amir Hashem, maybe today we'll read about 50 psukim, 45 psukim, and we'll see it all inside. So there's a bunch of chumashim around if anyone needs one. And the goal is that when it comes to the Megillah this year, we should have a clearer understanding of what the Balkar is reading and what's going on. So we'll start again from the beginning very quickly, even though we did it. We'll just read it inside, and we'll do a lot inside today. It wasn't the days of Achashverosh. Who Achashverosh? He is Achashverosh, and it repeats that he is Achashverosh because he remained the same Achashverosh Harasha the whole time. He was Harasha from the beginning of the Megillah to the end of the Megillah. HaMoilech, he was Moilech Me'atzmai. He was someone who became king. He wasn't from royalty, but he became king. And we said this is very important to understanding his character, who he was. He was someone who came in from nowhere and bought his way into the kingdom. Mehoidu v'ad Kush. He was the king all the way from Hoidu to Kush. 127 countries. So this wasn't just a regular king. He was the king of the whole world. In those days, when he sat, seems like for the first time on his throne, either it was the first time because he was finally comfortable that the Jews weren't leaving, because it was the end of the 70 years according to his calculation, or it was the first time because he had just built a brand new throne, which was a replica of Shlomo HaMelech's throne, which happened to be in Shushan, or he actually moved the capital on purpose to Shushan because he wanted to re-establish the kingdom in a new location. But either way, this was a new sitting. B'shnat Shalosh HaMelech was the third year of his reign. He made a feast for all the officers and the servants, of the officers, the army guys, the heads of the countries. He made a party for all the heads of the 127 countries. So not for the regular people, but just for the elite of society. He made a party. Why did he make a party? To show how wealthy and how honorable his Melucha is, the glory of his glory. 180-day party to show off all his treasures and to show off how powerful and what an amazing king he is. At the end of those days, a king made for everybody in Shushan specifically, and this was from the great people to the low people. He made a party for 7 days. So this was the second party. This was the party of the capital city, Shushan, and this party was only for 7 days. It was in the courtyard of the garden of the house of the king. These elaborate wool and purple wool and different kinds of beautiful tapestries Mitoy Zov, it has to have beds of gold and silver, al ritzbas bat, v'sheish v'dav zechers, on fancy floors. This was a beautiful, elaborate party, not just a plain party. The hashkas b'chlei Zov, he gave them to drink from gold kalim. The kalim shainim, each one had different kalim, not just all the same. It was beautiful, all kinds of different kalim. The Medrash, the Gemara tells us that this was talking about the kalim of the Beis HaMikdash that he gave them from, because after the 70 years, when he was confident that the Jews were not going to be redeemed, he had the guts to take out the kalim of the Beis HaMikdash, and that's what caused Vashti to be killed. The Yain Malchus Rav Ki Melech, there was tons of wine, like the Yad of the Melech, there was enough wine for everybody. V'ashtia kedos ein oines, and the shtia was without being forced. And this was also a new thing that Achashverosh set up, that even the poor people could come to the party. They weren't forced to drink. They could drink whatever wine they wanted. So this was that the king established on all the heads of his house, to do the will of everybody. He was trying to be like a special new king who everyone should love, and that's why he's making these parties, that everyone should come to his house and love him, and he was going to do kirtzoin ish v'ish, like the will of the people. I'm here for the will of the people. And we said that when a person tries to do everybody's ratzon, when you're in charge and you try to do everybody's ratzon, let's say you're the president of the shul, and you're trying to make everybody happy, forget it. It's never going to work. It's a recipe for disaster. Because what happens if I want something bad for you? Now whose ratzon do you do? And that's what happened. They wanted Vashti to come out. Vashti didn't want to come out, and it collided. So at this party where the king was trying to show how nice he is and how he does everybody's will, what happened? He kills his own wife. He went exactly the opposite, and he killed his own wife. And we said that why was Achashverosh doing all this? One of the reasons was Achashverosh had this inferiority complex. He was trying to establish himself as a king. He was trying to build himself up as, look what an amazing king I am over the whole world, look how much wealth I have, look how I do what everyone wants, I'm this amazing king. Comes along Vashti, Gav Vashti Hamalka Asa Mishtei Nashim. Vashti the queen made a party for the ladies. She made it very close to the king's palace. Either like the Gemara says, because she wanted them to have a mingling of the men and the women in order to lead to Avera, or like the Vilna Gaon says that she did it specially in the base of Malchus of Shalom. She did it in the king's special room, like sort of standing him up. This is your special room. Don't think that your kingship comes from you. Your kingship comes from me. Because I'm Vashti, the granddaughter of Nebuchadnezzar, the daughter of Belshazzar. I'm the real royalty here, and I'm the claim to fame, not you. And this was exactly the opposite of what Achashverosh wanted. And here comes, we're heading towards a collision. We have Achashverosh who's trying to say, I'm the king. So what does he say? Bayom Ashvi, it was on the 7th day, the Gemara says it was Shabbos, and it's illustrating the difference between Klal Yisrael. What do we do on Shabbos? Oichlin v'shoysim, we eat and drink, and we say Divrei Torah, Divrei Tishpachos. So what do they do on Shabbos? What do they do when they eat and drink? They start talking about Divrei Havai. And what happened over here? This one said the Mordy women are more beautiful. These ones said the Persians are more beautiful. And Achashverosh said, my lady is not Persian, not Mordian. She's Babylonian. Do you want to see her? This is what happened. They said, yeah, as long as she's not dressed. So when the lave was full of wine, the 7 servants that would deal with them, to bring Vashti Hamalka before the king, only wearing her crown. To show off her beauty, because she was very beautiful. And one of the other things that Achashverosh was trying to do over here was just trying to lower her to being a beautiful lady. This is not the queen because she's of royal lineage, because she's such a special person. She's beautiful, right? How do we look at a wife? Like the Gemara says, Kli shani mishtamish ba. The Kli that I'm mishtamish. That's not how we talk about our wives. They're people. They're beautiful, but not only beautiful in their beauty, but they're special people. But here he's saying that's not why she's my wife. Not because of her yichus, not because of who she is. Ki tovas marahi, just her beauty. And that was part of what he was trying to do, is to lower her to becoming just a beautiful lady. And Vashti realized this, and this led to the collision. But Tamoyina Malka Vashti Love, Malka Vashti didn't come. The Gemara says that she got tsaras, or Gavriel made her a tail, or the other pshat is that she just refused to come because she didn't want to lower herself. She realized what the king was doing, and she didn't want to lower herself. She refused to come b'chesher malchus. Sorry, tomorrow malchus was also a chutzpah. You send a message with the sarisim that I should come. That was part of lowering her. That's why it repeats again. But dvar melch asher b'yada sarisim. It was a chutzpah. The melch got very angry. The chamotzei bar aboy, and his anger burnt inside of him. What is there? Two kinds of anger: ketzef and chema. Ketzef is a normal anger, and normally when a person gets angry and he yells, he gets upset, the anger starts to calm down. But when a person has chema, is a burning anger inside, and it kept burning more and more and more. Why was it burning more and more and more? Because she was embarrassing him. He was trying to lower her, and she was embarrassing him. The Gemara says she even sent a message. And what was the message? On this day when he was trying to show his glory, this is the pinnacle of his success. After 187 days of parties, of showing off how great he was, on the pinnacle of his success, comes a little message from Vashti. Don't forget who you are. Steve, oh boy, of my father. My father could drink 1,000 drinks and didn't get drunk. And you, one little drink and already, a few little drinks and already you're telling me to come out undressed. The Vilna Gaon says, how did the Gemara know what she said? Because she must have said something embarrassing to him that he couldn't repeat, and that's what caused him to have this anger burning inside him that didn't go away. And by the way, this is a message, it's a good lesson for us, Agav, that when a person, this is even brought down in halacha, that when a person's very angry, he is supposed to go and let it out. Don't let it get bottled up inside. Because if you let it get bottled up inside, eventually you lash out. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to let it out, and then it becomes, the chema goes away. It's a different discussion, but if a person gets angry at someone, a person hates someone, they're not supposed to keep it inside. They're supposed to actually approach the person and give him an opportunity to explain what happened and to explain what he did wrong, and talk it out in order to calm everything down. So this is where we got up to. Now we're up to Pasuk Yud Gimel. This is new.
Sorry, quickly. Vashti didn't have enough foresight to know what's going to happen after she embarrasses the king. Meaning, she didn't, you know what I mean? Like,
it's a good question. We don't know 100% what happens. People have egos, and sometimes their egos put them in bad situations. Also, we'll see in a second that it was really a crazy thing for Achashverosh to do, to kill Vashti, because this was part of his own claim to fame. And she felt, possibly, that I am what's causing you to be king. You can't kill me.
There's a fine balance of power between the two of them.
Yeah.
But once he established his malchus, right, and after all these...
Well, maybe she felt that...
She was now irrelevant.
Well, maybe she misjudged that.
There's a balance that was changing, right?
Right.
No, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. Okay, Pasuk Yigimel. Vayomer HaMelech Chachamim Yoidei Itim. The Melech said to the Chachamim, the ones who know the times, because this is the way the Melech speaks in front of the judges. So the Vilna Gaon and the Malbim, they explain that even with what she did wrong, the Melech still was trying not to kill her. Interesting, they seem to learn that he didn't want to kill her. She was very beautiful, she was still the Nebuchadnezzar's God. He didn't want to kill her, he wasn't interested in killing her. He was trying to do Kirtzai Nishrish, he was trying to show what a nice guy he was. He wasn't trying to kill people. So, first of all, they say that there's two courts. There's the court of the Yoidei Ha'itim, and then there's the court, if you look carefully, it says, there's another court called the Yoidei Das V'Din. So the Yoidei Ha'itim are like the political judges. They know the times. And every single thing that a person does, you can't just judge it based on the action. You got to judge it based on the times, based on what's going on, right? Embarrassing a king at the pinnacle of his glory is not the same thing as embarrassing the king when he's maybe on the road and no one's around. So there's the political judges, and then there's the das v'din. The din is just judgment, and das, the Malbim says, is like musar. So the Melech said to the Yodei Itim, I'm going to go and I'm going to take this to the other court, to the court of the Mishpah, not the political court. And why did he do this? He specifically did this, both the Vilna Gaon and the Malbim explain a little differently, but they both explain that he was trying to take her to the court that was going to judge it as a personal matter between a husband and a wife, and not as a matter between the kingship, because right, it's not as a national matter, because when you're a king, everything you're a person and you're the king. So was this affront to the king as a person, or was this an affront to the king in the whole kingship? If it was an affront to the king in the whole kingship, then you got to kill her. But if it's a personal matter between him and his wife, so maybe it's a little different.
They get counseling.
What?
They get counseling.
Yeah, or get a punishment, but you don't have to kill her. So he went to the court that was close to him. Karshana Shesa Admas Asarshish Maris Marsana Memuchan. Shiva Sari Parasamada, 7 officers of Parasamada, Roy Apnei Melech, Hayosh Rishon Malchus, the ones who saw the face of the king, who sat in the front of the Malchus. And he went to them, Kadash, Ma Lasas B'Malkavashi, what to do with the Malkavashi. Now here we have for the first time something very interesting. Every time we talk about Vashti, I think, except for 2, it says Vashti Hamalka. Vashti, who was the queen. But over here he said Bamalka Vashti, the queen Vashti. And the difference that the Vilna Gaon and the Malbim point out is that when you say the Malka Vashti, then her Malucha comes from herself. That she's first the queen and then she's Vashti. But if you say Vashti Amalka, then she's first just a plain old Vashti, but her kingdom comes from the fact that she's married to me. And over here, Achashverosh every time refers to her Vashti Hamalka. Except for when she refused.
Is it true with Esther as well?
I don't know. Except for when she refused. She said, Vatamayin Hamalka Vashti. When she refused, she was refusing because she's the Malka first. That's why she refused to come. Because I'm the Malka Vashti. I'm not Vashti Hamalka, I'm the Malka Vashti. In other words, I'm first the king. I'm the rulership. It comes from me. And over here, Achashverosh said, Kedas Malas Malka Vashti. He was giving a signal, don't kill her. Because she's the Malka Vashti. She's first the Malka, then she's Vashti. She didn't do the Maimer of the king Achashverosh, B'yad HaSarisim. And again, it points out, it wasn't a direct command from the king. It was a message through the Sarisim. So he was trying to give little hints to let her off, right? He went to the easier courts. He called her that she's the queen Vashti, so she's equal to me. So she's equal to me. This is a personal matter between kings, right? When one king sort of sins against another king, so it's not a hedyot, it's not a low person against a king, it's equals. So equals, it's more similar to the case of a regular husband and wife. So Achashverosh was trying to let her off the hook over here. And also, B'yad HaSarisim, and also, let's think about this a step further. What did I ask her to do? This is why he wanted her to do the das. Not only the din, but the das v'din. Das is musar. I asked her to come out undressed in public. What kind of chutzpah is that? Pay attention to what she refused. She didn't refuse a normal request. She refused a request that was degrading. It was a message, not even a personal request. It was a message. It wasn't a direct request. It was a degrading request. And he was trying to say, let her off the hook. Comes along, Memuchan, good? So that's how you read these psukim. So how do we see he's letting her off the hook? Let's just go over that for a second. Number 1, he went to, instead of going to the Yodei Ha'itim, he went to the Yodei Das V'din. He went to the easier courts. Number 2, he specifically went to the Das V'din. They know the Musar involved and they know the Din. They understand the Musar involved as well. And he points out, and he says, she's the Malka Vashti. She's my equal. She's not just a regular person who refused me. Number 2, she didn't listen to a message. It wasn't direct. It was just a message. Number 3, it was degrading to send a message. Number 4, it was degrading to ask her to come out undressed. So let her off because of all these reasons. There's even more reasons that people point out. Vayomer Memuchan lefnei HaMelech V'Hasham. Comes along Memuchan, the Gemara says, Mekan shehedya koifetz berosh. Where was Memuchan listed in the order? Karshana Sheser Admas Asarshish Meres Marsana Memuchan, number 7. jumps up Memuchan and talks first. And the Gemara says, Mekansha Hedjit Koifetz Berosh. You see over here that a Hedjit jumps up first. He doesn't wait. Who's Memuchan? The Gemara says Memuchan was Haman. And he's Muchan the Peronius. He's ready for Peronius. Memuchan was Haman, and he jumped up first, and he said,
so is the Gemara saying he did wrong, that the Hedjit should be?
He should not have, of course. He should have waited his turn.
Isn't that the rule in the Sanhedrin, that the junior one speaks first?
I don't know, but over there in those courts, the rule was that it went from the best to the lowest. He should have waited. So here we get our first introduction to another character, who's going to be introduced later in more detail, and his name is Memuchan, but his name is also Haman. And why is the Megillah called Memuchan? One of the reasons is because he's Muchan Lepranis, he's ready for punishment, and he jumps ahead, right? Who was Haman? Haman was the hairdresser of the king originally. And interesting, we get into power, we'll see that over time comes into power, we have the stable boy and the hairdresser, and the queen is the Jewish lady. Right? It's almost a comedy. Like, who would put this together? That the stable boy is the king, the prime minister is was the old hairdresser, and the queen is the Jewish lady, the Rosh Hashiva's wife. Right? This is an interesting turn of events. What does Memuchan say? What is he trying to do over here? Not only on the king did Vashti do wrong, because what's he trying to do over here? He's trying to turn this into a national matter. This isn't personal. You have to understand what's going on over here, otherwise you don't know how to read these words. This wasn't just an affront to the king. It's against all the officers and all the nations which are in the countries of Achashverosh. Because the word, what happened that the Malka did, will go out to all the women, to embarrass their husbands. And he says like this, Vashti is going to become the role model of the feminist movement. There's going to be a new feminist movement in Persia where all the women will stand up against their husbands and say, we don't have to listen to you anymore. But Amram, they're going to say, HaMelech HaChashverosh Amar L'Havi Es Vashti HaMalka in front of them. The Melech HaChashverosh said to bring Vashti HaMalka in front of him. V'loi V'osh, she didn't come. V'ayoyim Hazeh, today, Timar Nasar is Paras Samadai, all the lady officers of Paras Samadai, Sheshamas HaMalka L'Chol Sar HaMelech, they're going to hear what the Malka said to the Melech, they're going to do the same. It's going to be an embarrassment in the whole community.
So he's being an instigator, basically.
He's
trying to light a fire.
He's trying to get rid of Vashti.
Meaning Achashverosh is trying to deal with it, saying, okay, listen,
right,
it's whatever. He's saying no. He's trying to adapt,
Yeah. He's trying to turn this into a national affair. And if it's a national matter, then you got to kill her. If it's a personal matter, then you could let her off. You could do whatever you want. So
he's eliminating other centers of power.
Right. He's trying to get rid of Vashti, who was another center of power. Others also explain that he had a personal problem. He had a very, very smart wife. We'll see later, Zeresh, who helped build him up, and he had a similar problem to Achashverosh. He had a wife. He married up. He had a wife who was part of the cause of his power, and he wanted to get rid of his wife, just like Achashverosh. So part of what he did was get Achashverosh to get rid of his wife and to make this proclamation in order that he should be able to get his wife quiet. So he says, what's his Eitzah? If it's good for the king, let a Dvar Malchus, let a royal proclamation come out, let it be written in the rules of Paras and Mordy, it shouldn't pass. That Vashti did not come in front of the king. And give her kingdom away to a better wife than her. And this rule of the king will spread because it's a great malchus. And all the women will give glory to their husbands, from great until small. Vayita v'adomer bein hamelech v'asarim. This was good in the eyes of the melech and the sarim. Vayas hamelech kedvar memuchan, and the melech did like the words of memuchan. So he accepted this taina, that this is going to be a dangerous thing, that the women are going to rise up, rising up of the women, and he got rid of Vashti. Now it doesn't say he killed Vashti, but everybody knows that a queen who is not the queen anymore has no use. You just kill her. Well, what's the point of her at that point?
Wasn't Mordecai one of these people?
No.
Was this what you want?
No. Mordecai has not been introduced yet.
It's not that she just had no use, she's actually very dangerous.
Well, that's not how they say it. They say that any woman who was the queen and now can't be with the king anymore is useless, and they just kill her automatically.
Rabbi.
But this is the queen who...
He didn't want to say to kill her direct,
She's
just
the
in case she
granddaughter
got
of
through it.
Nebuchadnezzar. She's not just the...
Were these advisors or was it a court?
This is a court.
So, since when does a ruler
Need a court.
have to
Go to a court.
the will of the court?
So you're bringing up something interesting I wasn't going to get so into, but included in this conversation, according to the Vilna Gaon and according to the Malbim, is another interesting idea. In Persia, there was a special rule. And this rule, according to the way the Vilna Gaon and the Malbim explain, I think others, this rule was that when there was a national matter, the king could deal with it himself. But anything which was personal against the king had to be brought in front of a court. And this was set up in order to protect the officers, right? Because who wants to be an officer of a king if you say the wrong thing and it's off with your head? So they had a special rule that you had to take it to the court. And one of the things that the Memuchan proposed is that it shouldn't be like this anymore. It should be a new rule that the king could take care of everybody, whoever he wants, without going to court. And they say that this is a special thing that happened because years later, when Esther invited Haman and Achashverosh to the party, so Esther put Haman into a bad situation, and Achashverosh made a decision right then and there to kill him. Had Achashverosh had to go to the courts, Haman would have had enough time to bribe people and get out of it. But he set his own trap. By changing the rule, he set his own trap. I didn't want to get so into that, but because you asked the question...
Sorry, also, why did he fall for the whole...
Just give me a napkin.
Why did he fall for the whole thing? I mean, he wasn't a smart man. He didn't know. I mean,
So he...
Haman was selling something, but he, could have, saw through it. Or,
I guess Haman was a good...
convincer.
The Gemara says nobody knows Lishna Bisha. Nobody knew how to say Lashon Hara like Haman. Haman had a special tongue.
It's actually interesting if you use the logic of the previous class you had, that this was written at a time when Achashverosh was still sitting on the throne, that he appears to be somebody who is following due process.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually appear to be a stupid person.
Right.
He's following due process, and he's staying within the law of the land at this point.
Yeah.
If you read it...
He stayed within the law of the land the whole time. We'll see.
Yeah.
But not only that, but just by the beginning of the process, after the Brahmayala, means all this time he was still angry, and the person who's angry, they cannot rationally think.
I was about to say that.
Yeah, it's also possible.
And it's also setting up Haman already here to be the villain that will play out at the end of the whole story for the Persians.
Could be.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. What happens? Pasuk Chav Beis. Vayishlach Svarim al Kol Medinas HaMelech HaMedina Mina Kechsav Vel Amam Kosher. They sent out proclamations, Svarim, to all the countries. Lios Kol Yisher Bebeisei. What did the proclamations say? Every man should be the ruler in his house. Medaber Kosher Amen. They should speak like the nation, like his country. Now, the Gemara tells us that these first letters were also very important to save the Jews. Because imagine if you are sitting over here and you get a proclamation that the husband should rule in his house. So they said, the words of the Gemara are, Imali Igris Rishonos, if not for the first letters, there would be nobody left from the Jews. Because what happened? Because what did they say? I mean, my hide the Shadalon. What's this business he's sending us? Everybody should rule their house? Pshita, obviously. Afilu karcha. It's not clear exactly what a karcha is. Even a karcha, a low guy, but basically Pardash Lav, in his house he's like an officer. Everybody rules his house. Every man is the head of his house, at least back in those days. Nowadays,
can we get a letter from the Kollel?
Yeah, we're past the feminist movement. This is, but
you're saying Vashti won?
Vashti, well, I don't know if she won, but many years later, whatever that lady's name was, she won.
But Israel also sets up a precedence, saying that just because the queen didn't listen to her husband, not any time a wife did not listen to her husband, just like Achashverosh had the right to kill her or get rid of his wife.
Well, they couldn't kill her.
Same strength to the husband.
Right. So how did this save them? Because this saved them because Rashi explains that when they got the second letters later that said to kill all the Jews, but to do it on the 14th of Adar, they wouldn't have waited. They would have been so excited about this new rule, they would have just done it. But because they got the earlier letters, so they said, well, what's with this guy, right? He seemed like he was crazy. Remember, this is a huge world. They didn't have internet, right? It was they only had very minor connections with this king. And what's this very important proclamation, right? Imagine, like, all of a sudden a proclamation from the king, and they're coming in horseback, and they're running, they're putting up signs everywhere. The men should rule their houses. Yay. They thought it was crazy. So when they get the next letters, they didn't act on it right away. So this is another thing that saved us. Okay, so that is the first parak Rishon.
The other thing about this is that it blames, from the point of view of the Persians, right? It blames Haman for the destruction of the line of Nebuchadnezzar in the end. He's responsible for the murder of
I'm not
Vashti.
sure if that's a problem or not, but let's go on. Let's go to Paradise.
From the eyes of the Persians.
Maybe. Vashti wasn't, none of them were Persians. The Persia was new kingdom. Okay, Achar Dvar Ma'ela. After these things, so after everything so far was put into place, Geshoy Chamas HaMelech HaChazresh, when the anger of Achashverosh calmed down, Zochars Vashti, remembered Vashti, Vesasher also saw what she did, Vesasher Nigzala, what was commanded on her, and it explains that he remembered Vashti, and look, the first time, it doesn't say Amalka, it doesn't say any Malka, just Vashti. He remembered her beauty, and what was happened to her, and he remembered how it was Nigzala, and he learned his lesson. I'm not going to get a queen this time who's of royal lineage. I'm not going to marry up. I'm going to marry for one thing and one thing only. Let's make a beauty contest. Right? We spoke about this already. Let's make a beauty contest. We'll figure out who's Miss Universe, and that's who we'll marry. No yichus, no money, no lineage, we don't care about anything. Let's just find who's the most beautiful. I don't want to get into the same position I was in last time where my queen is going to stab me up. She's going to feel like she's more of the royalty than me. So the Melech set up officers in all the countries of his kingdom. They gathered all the beautiful basulas, the virgins, to the Shushan Abir, to this special hotel or whatever for the women that Hagar was in charge of, and they gave them their spices that they would bathe in to get ready. So the Gemara tells us, the Pasuk of Mishlei says, Kol Aram Yasa B'das, every smart person does things smart, but a foolish person, Yafresh Ivelis, he spreads like hurt or anger or something. Kol Aram Yasa B'das, Zed David. What happened when David needed a wife, needed a girl? We'll look for one Nara, we'll look for one girl. So Koman David Barta, anybody who had a daughter, After Nehila, they all ran. They wanted to be the king. What an opportunity to become the king's wife. Still, he had to put officers. Everybody that had a daughter hid the daughter. All the girls are in hiding, right? And under the hay. Why? Because whoever the melech takes, he lives with. And once he lives with her, that's it. She's not allowed to be with the commoner anymore. So she's finished. And so he's gathering all the women in, and only one winner. So, it's a great chance to win the lottery, but if you don't win the lottery, you're basically dead. You're wasted, right? You're going to live. What?
Why?
Because you can't get married.
He's with every single.
Yeah, every night he was with another one. It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't. It was a little bit of a different kind of beauty contest.
And because he's with them, they can't get married to.
They go to the harem.
That's true. Yeah. What?
And Esther submitted herself to this?
Esther didn't do it. She didn't have a choice. We'll see.
Why did Dafka want to pursue that? Dafka all of a sudden cared.
I think it's for for the king to have somebody else's wife.
If she was beautiful.
Yeah, but it's not about coveting to take someone else's leftovers. I think.
You can also interpret it a different way because after she was he remembered not him as a king and her as a queen. At this point, I don't know how long they were married. He just remembered her as a husband and wife.
Okay, maybe.
Okay, and the reason why I say this is because there was a relationship there. Now, what's the best way to take a king out of his moping? To appeal to his base instinct.
Right.
And that's why I said that'll take up his mind from the relationship he had with Vashti.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Okay, so then Vanara Shatita Bene Amelach, the one who's going to be best in the eyes of the king, Timlech Tachas Vashti, she'll become the queen under Vashti. And again, it doesn't say Amalka, just plain old Vashti. Vashti the beautiful, not Vashti the granddaughter of Nebuchadnezzar. Plain old Vashti the beautiful. And he made this beauty pageant. He set up these officers, and everyone has to bring their daughters. And now we're introduced to some new characters. Ish Yehudi Haya b'Shushan Abira. There was a Jewish man in Shushan, Shmoy Mordechai ben Yair ben Shimi ben Kish. Ish Shimini, his name was Mordechai, son of Yair, the son of Shimi, the son of Kish. He was from Shevet Binyamin. Why was he called Yehudi if he was from Binyamin? Yehuda, he wasn't from Shevet Yehuda. So very quickly, because Klal Yisrael was split into two groups. There was the 10 Shvatim, and then there was Malchus Yehuda. And anybody who came, there was, if you learn the Gemaras, it talks about there was two sections of Eretz Yisrael. There was Yehuda and the Galil. So Yehuda was where primarily the biggest Shevet was Yehuda. There was also Binyamin there. But every Jew at the time, after the 10 tribes were taken to Galus, basically all the Jews were from then on called Yehudis. That's what the name, why we call ourselves, right? Yehudim, Jews, right? Where does this idea come from? It comes from because Yehudi really means Yehuda. But it comes from the fact that after the two things split in half, and then they all went to Golos, we all remained as the Yehudas. So that's a Pashup Shah, why he's called Ish Yehudi. Why is he called Ish Yemini? It's called Ish Yemini because he was from Binyamin. Okay. So Ish Yehudi, B'Shush Nabir, Shmoy Morcha Ben Yair Ben Shimon Kish, Ish Yemini, Asher Hagla, Yerushalayim, he was exiled from Yerushalayim, with the first wave of exile, which was exiled at the time of Yechanya, Melech Yehuda, the king of Yehuda, Asher Hagla Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavel, that Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Bavel, exiled. So what does this mean? Quickly, we spoke about this already, that there was different waves of the Golos. When Nebuchadnezzar came to Yerushalayim for the first time and conquered Yerushalayim, he exiled, the first wave of exile was the Cheresh and the Masker, was the elite of the nation. And they came down to Bavel, all the biggest Torah scholars, and they set up Bavel as a Torah community, just like when Yaakov sent Yehuda Lahiris Levan of Goshna. That when it went down to Mitzrayim, first he sent Yehuda to set up, Rashi says, to set up a yeshiva. So the first wave of exile was in the days of Yechanya, and then he set up a different king, and this king eventually rebelled, and then there was the second wave of Galus, and then there was the final Galus in the days of Gedaliah ben Achikam. We spoke about this a few times. This was where the complication of the 70 years comes from. When do you start counting from? Fine. He took care of Hadassah. He, Esther, this was Esther Bas Doidoi, the daughter of his uncle, his cousin, or his niece, because she had no father. She was very beautiful. When her father and mother died, Mordechai took her either as a daughter, the Gemara says he took her as a bias. He actually married her. That would go back to the problem that she wasn't a basula. I don't know how they checked if people were basulas or not. So maybe they weren't publicly man and wife, and maybe they thought she was a basula. I don't know. So fine. So now we get introduced to two new people, two of the characters in the story, Mordechai and Esther, and we'll see more about that. When they heard the proclamation of the king, Vidasa, and his rules, now remember, they were in the capital. So all these women are coming. Remember, this proclamation was from all 127 countries. And all the girls, I guess they must have had, I saw also brought down, they must have had beauty pageants in each place. They picked, they picked the finalists came. But still, all these... What?
1 second though. But if they had their own pageants and their own hounds, you would think that they would also be, the judges would also be with them to see who was the best, no?
Yeah,
maybe. And then, but then the king.
So I hear. So they all came to Shushan. Now remember, Esther's in Shushan. So the people in Shushan would have a very difficult time claiming they didn't know about it, right? Because they're all coming to Shushan. All these women are pouring into Shushan. Esther was grabbed and taken to the palace of the king. So she didn't go on purpose. She was forced to go. Why was she forced? Why didn't she want to go? Well, first of all, stop. Why in the world would a from Jewish woman, the wife or maybe the daughter of the Gadol Ador, why would she want to go and get married to some Goyish king? And the Nar was very good in Haggai's eyes, and he already figured that this was going to become the queen. She had a lot of chesed in front of him. And they rushed to give her all her spices and her presents. They gave her 7 noras, 7 women to take care of her. They didn't do this for everybody. They treated her special because they already had a feeling that she was going to be the winner. And they gave her the best places and the best service. The Gemara tells us that she took these 7 women and she gave them each a day. And that's how she kept track of when Shabbos was. Each one she gave them a day, and then this one was Shabbos' one, so she knew when Shabbos was. The Gemara also says that it's interesting. We call her Hadassah, we call her Esther. Why does she have 2 names? What's her name? So it's a machlekes. Karla Hadassah, Karla Esther. Tanya Meir Omer Esther Shma. Her name was really Esther. Lamer Nikra Shma Hadassah. Hashem HaTzadikim. She was a tzaddikish. Nikra Hadassah. Yehuda Omer Hadassah Shma. No, really her name was Hadassah. Lamer Nikra Shma Esther. Hashem Sheshem Esther Torah. Because she hid. She didn't say who she was, and she hid also when they tried to get her. She was a hider. Nechemia Omer. Why was she called Hadassah? Her name was Hadassah. Why was she called Esther? Because they used to call her that Hashem is Taher. She was shown. One more pshat is that Esther Yereka, she was really green. She was Hadassah like a flower. She wasn't even a beautiful lady. It was just a chut shel chesed. This chesed was put on her to make her appear as if she was beautiful.
There's a slight problem only because with the very fact that it says, the Malach Naoros, Solos, okay? And all of one have to say, I'm not Bashul anymore, so I'm out of the running, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know if we have to focus so much on that. I don't know if that was the way out.
I don't know. That's one of the requirements.
Right, I hear.
Just like Tovas Mare, if a person's not beautiful or not,
Right, I understand what you're saying.
They're right. So,
Yeah.
Her real name was Hadassah?
That's machlekes. If her name was Hadassah, if her name was Esther. Lo higida Esther's ama vesmoilata. Esther did not say where she was from or where she was born or what her nation was. Ki Mordechai tziva leha shelo saga, because Mordechai told her not to say. So we all know this is a big part of the Megillah. Esther never said where she was from, right? Why not? Anyone know why not? Why didn't she say where she was from?
Probably a Jewish neighborhood.
What?
You said before that Achashverosh didn't want to make the decision on the basis of the heritage of the girls. He just wanted beauty. Period.
Why didn't she tell him? That's why he didn't ask.
You may be right, by the way. That it may be the pshat. First of all, it depends.
But isn't it problematic though?
Who cares though?
What if
She didn't want to be with the king. She should have said, I'm a Jew.
Was that a plus or a minus? Was it a plus or a minus to be a
So
Jew?
what, to be a Jew? I think it was a minus.
Right, Daniel was one of the top officers at the time. Mordechai seems to have been a member of parliament at the time. The Jews were at the top of their game. I mean, the Jews. Who says they were despised? Who says how despised they were whether they were so looked down on at that time?
Makes sense for Mordecai's motivation. He may have had some nevuah that at some point it would be good for her
the history is
to
showing that no matter how high
and
Jews were,
as part of the story that
Maybe. You may be right.
reveal it later when it was needed.
You may be right. One thing I would like to point out is that it's not mentioned in the Gemara. The reason, number one, there's a bunch of different pshatim brought down, which I'll tell you. Some people are saying some of them. But what I found fascinating was when I was preparing this, I didn't know the answer, and I just found it interesting. Like everybody knows this, and yet there's so many things in the Megillah that like you don't look at, you don't pay attention to, you don't think about it. It's just like, she didn't say it. Why not? So I do think it's very interesting to note that even simple things we have to pay attention, we have to look at why. So Rashi says, let's take a look at Rashi. Pasuk Yud. I guess that's where we start usually with Rashi. Asher lo sagid, kidei sheyomer she mishpacha bezuya, vishalchua. They should say, she's probably from some like really low family, and they'll send her away. Shim yadu shim mishpacha shol hamelech. If they would have known she was royalty, she was from mishpacha shol hamelech, they would have taken her.
I thought we said with Dafka he didn't want.
Yeah, but I don't know if everybody knew exactly what was going on
In his head.
The collectors would have taken her if they knew.
If
He
they
might
would
not have
know,
wanted her.
no. We don't know that. We're assuming that we're saying that he didn't want royalty, but this was maybe it was a little bit of a different royalty. It wasn't a royalty that would give her the power to be the king over Bava. It was just that she would know how to carry herself. She came from royal blood, so maybe it would be a plus. But so the first thing is that we see that she was, according to the way Rashi is learning, she was trying to get out of being queen. She did not want to be queen. She didn't want to be taken, and therefore she knew that she had a plus. The fact that she was a Mishpacha Shol, they would have B'dafka wanted her, which is fascinating. It's not to hide that she was Jewish. The way I think that most people understand it is that it was to hide that she was Jewish. But why did she want to hide that she was Jewish? The only logic to saying that she wanted to hide that she was Jewish, according to the simple idea, is because if she was Jewish, that would be a negative. And therefore she didn't say it because she wanted to win. In other words, is this a strategy to win, or is this a strategy to lose? That's the first thing we need to figure out.
She wanted to win?
Well, that's how I think people understand it. Rashi is saying, no, this was a strategy to lose. By not saying where she was from, they would say, she's from some low family, and they wouldn't take her. But if she would say who she was from, they would realize she's from Shalom Melech, and they would have taken her.
So then the biggest question is, like Gabby said, why don't you just say I'm married? Hey guys, I'm out of it. I'm married.
Yeah, we asked that question. I agree. I hear.
The whole thing is it's very different. The whole thing is because isn't Gilead Royce one of the things for which you're supposed to let yourself be killed rather than committed, and yet this is what's actually taking place.
This is not Gilead Royce. We'll see. We'll talk about this later. The Gemara talks about this, that Esther is a lady, and for a lady is different. We'll talk about. I don't know if we'll get into that. It's a good question. It's called. Let's leave that.
Only because
we'll discuss that after.
Most basic fundamental thing is Taras Mishpach as far as.
Let's talk about this after. Okay, let's forget that medrash. Let's pretend they weren't married. Let's leave that medrash for now. That was 10 minutes ago. I'm not responsible for what I said 10 minutes ago. Okay, so the first answer that we have
now
comes,
the niece.
Yeah, now she's his niece. So the first answer that we have comes from Rashi. Rashi says this was a strategy to not be taken as the queen, and the strategy was that if they would have known who she was, they would have taken her, which I think is fascinating. It's the opposite of I think people understand it. The Malbim says also similar, a little different, but he says that by not saying who she was is also a strategy not to take her, because who's going to marry a lady without knowing who she is? Maybe she's a Sufi, maybe she's a Mamzeres, maybe she's a bastard child. Who knows who she is? She could be the lowest of the low. So it was a strategy to say, if she's not saying, she must be very low, similar to Rashi, just a little different. The Vilna Gaon says, it's a very different idea. What happened? Esther was hiding the whole time, right? And she was trying not to get taken. Eventually they caught her. So she was hiding, right? This would maybe also explain something, right? If they came and they took her, where'd they take her from? Simple, they took her from her house. If they took her from her house, they knew where she was from. They had an idea. So it's not 100% clear. Maybe she was an orphan, and they didn't know where she came from. She was in Mordechai's house, but they didn't know her lineage, maybe. But maybe she was in hiding, and they found her in hiding. They took her from in hiding, so they didn't know where she was from. They just found her in some barn hiding somewhere. So she was hiding. She was running away. She didn't want to be taken. If that's the case, then that would maybe explain how they didn't realize where she was from.
Also the fact that
One second. So the Vilna Gaon says like this. The Vilna Gaon says that why did he tell her not to say? Because he was scared. If they found out that she was hiding, what would they do? They'd kill her. They'd kill her family. And it would be an excuse to kill all the Jews. So he said, don't say who you are.
Abraham told Sarah to say you're my sister.
Well, no, it's different. He said, one second.
Mordecai did that.
It's just Yira, Shalo Yahargu Isa. V'haya Mordechai misyare. Mordechai was worried. Shehargu Isa. That's Mishpachta Ves Amma. Ki Yoimru Shem Etzil Chadam Filma. Because look at the chutzpah of these Jews. They don't even want to get married to the king. The king's giving you an opportunity to get married to him, and you don't want to get married to the king. That means that you hate the king. Right? Imagine if the king comes and says, I want to marry your daughter.
But all the girls
what
were
would
hiding,
you do?
What? You said all the girls were hiding. Not
she hid more of them. And anyways, maybe they would have killed all of them.
Well, the wording's not so, but look at it. She took. Esther was taken.
Right, she was taken because she was in hiding. Right, 100%. So what would you do if the king came over to you and said, you want to marry your daughter?
Okay.
Well, you're in a little bit of a funny situation. If you say, I'm not sure if it's such a good shidduch. I don't know. Here, let me see your resume, please.
What's in it for me?
Right? The chutzpah. The king wants to marry your daughter and you don't let her. So Mordechai said, you better not say where you're from. If you say where we're from, we're all going to get in trouble. He's going to kill you, he's going to kill me, he's going to kill your family, he's going to kill the nation. Don't say where you're from. So here we see a totally different idea, completely different idea of why not to say. One reason we had was because that would be the cause of her being taken. And the next reason we have now is because it was dangerous to say, because they were running away. Okay, one more idea from the Ibn Ezra. And that's it. Let's stop with this. He says that he brings down an idea that some people say that it was a nevuah. Who said that? Michael, right? Oh, you said Mordy. That it was a nevuah that he knew he had a nevuah that later on it would come out a savings of the Jews, that if she didn't say now, and then she'd be able to bring it up right at the right moment. He had a nevuah like that, and therefore he told her, don't say anything.
Who said that?
The Ibn Ezra. And then he says, but v'anocha be'enai, listen to this, this is totally different, because Mordechai wanted her to keep the Torah in hiding. She should keep Shabbos, she shouldn't eat treif, and he didn't want that, and he figured that if she says who she is, they're going to force her to go against the Torah. But if they don't know she's Jewish, they won't realize what she's doing. I don't like this meat, right? She wasn't, I'll choose this, I'll eat this. They didn't realize what she was doing. Had they realized she wasn't Jewish, they would have forced her to go against the Torah. So that's another possible reason. And then, like Michael said, is another possible reason that could be that some people, I think, say, I'm not sure who says this, but at least it's a possibility, it was a strategy to be taken. Because if you understand the depth over here, Achashverosh Bedavka wanted a nobody. He Bedavka wanted a nobody, and he Bedavka picked her because she was a nobody. That's what you were saying, Michael, right? And that's why she didn't say. Mordechai understood this, and therefore Mordechai said, don't say who you are, be a nobody, because they want a nobody, and it was a strategy to be taken.
Mordechai wanted her to become queen?
That's a possibility. Why would he want her to be king? So that she'd be in place later to save the Jews.